It's amazing when you allow yourself, and I say allow because the empowerment is within us, allow yourself to feel your own empowerment and to go ahead and take control of your life.
Allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to get angry, allow yourself to be happy, and allow yourself treats, to dance in the kitchen, to eat the extra slice of cake, to smile, to get angry, because not every day is rainbows and unicorns. Allow yourself to do that, because that's all part of the work in progress.
Hi, I'm Lennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe. As we age, I have found my experience, and my girlfriends have told me this as well as my clients, that sometimes they feel kind of invisible, not being really recognized for who they are, or even recognized for who they want to be, kind of overlooked when it comes to consideration. My favorite story to tell is when I can remember a time when you would be maybe filling out a questionnaire or something, and then it comes time to do the demographics part. And you see your gender there. These days, you've got multiple selections for gender. So you see that, right? And then you get to the age thing. And all of a sudden, you get to 50, and it used to be there was nothing else there. And I'm like, okay, does that mean I don't exist? Is this a figment of my imagination? Am I a figment of my imagination? And then over time, I begin to see, maybe 60 plus. Just the other day, though, I did see 65 plus. And I was like, oh, 67, I catched it. But, we see these kinds of slights in society all the time. And many times we just kind of overlook it because we don't want to be preoccupied with all the negativity, but also because we've kind of gotten desensitized to that and desensitized to people's basically painting us with a broad stroke when we're all, anybody over 60, over 50, we don't have that much to say. Well, today I'm really excited to introduce to you Martina Gruppo, who has dealt with these kinds of issues, and she's actually written a book about not just this, but what it was like to be married to a covert narcissist and the things that she went through to be delivered from that. And she's here with us today to kind of share our story and just have a conversation about how we need to really show up more for ourselves. And also, rip the Band-Aid off that whole bit about being invisible and come out of the dark into the light and say, this is who we are, and be glad about it. Martina, welcome to the Vibe Living Podcast. It's wonderful to have you here today.
And it's fantastic to be here. I'm delighted to see you, and thank you for welcoming me on your show.
You're absolutely welcome. I think your story, your book, Hello Flower, is fascinating. It's a story where you really dig deep and explain the situations you went through and how you went through them as you began to untangle yourself in a marriage that was to a narcissist. And it was really amazing. One of the things that you said is that the experience you went through a really steep learning curve in terms of rediscovering who you are and how to write about it. And in all of that, you really did begin to peel back the layers of why you put up with this kind of behavior for so long. So tell us a little bit about you and your story and why you're so passionate to talking about women and in terms of the importance of showing up in their lives.
Okay, let me start with, because I loved what you introduced this whole thing with, which is the whole idea that women feel invisible after a certain age. And I think the problem is, and I'm not generalizing here, I'm just talking especially about our generation and the way we grew up, is that it was almost considered to be selfish if you thought of yourself first. And I think that's massively changed over time. And I think now almost to the other way, where you need to think, only about yourself. But I think going back to women of our age, we're people pleasers, aren't we? Whether you have children, whether you don't have children, whether you're in a marriage or whether you're single, you grow up being a people pleaser. And at a certain point, you sort of, I don't have children, unfortunately, but you let your children go into the world, and then you find yourself alone with who you are. And it's at that point that I think that that's when we really need somebody there saying, yeah, you're fantastic, you're amazing. And actually, what ends up happening is you're almost considered as though you should be sitting in the shadows away. Don't bother us now because you've done your work, you've done what you need to do. Let the younger people shine, or let somebody else come to the forefront. And I think that what ends up happening to a lot of women and some men, maybe, I'm just speaking from my particular sex, but that we end up thinking as though we have to be something else in order to shine out. We can't just be liked for us, I think that's rubbish. Sorry, or that's not that's the English
Not
word.
true. Yes.
It's not true. It's dreadful and unfortunately, and I know that a lot of people find it very enviable that I live just south of Rome, by the coast in Italy. Wow, wow, what a place to live. It's fantastic. It's incredible. You know what? I don't think I've felt more invisible at my age than I do here.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that you feel more invisible?
Because after a certain age here, you're not considered to be attractive anymore.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how much you sort of look after yourself. It's very appearance based here. So it's very much about what you look like, and you have to present yourself in a way that is sexually appealing to men.
Interesting. Living in an environment like that, plus with the other societal norms about, most women after 50 or whatever are invisible, even though that is still changing. But living in a situation like that, how do you nurture yourself? How do you still keep feeling good and showing up for yourself?
Okay. I'm sorry. I am going to say this, but you know that after the menopause, we start to lose a lot of our estrogen.
Yes.
Yes, okay, that diminishes. I've had breast cancer, so I can't take hormone replacement therapy or anything like that. So, I have this theory that the less estrogen I have, the less I care.
What? This is true. This is true. I mean, that really is true. And and it's interesting because when women are talking about, things they didn't know were going to happen as they go through this journey with menopause, that is probably one of the most surprising things that it happens to you and your significant other if they happen to be a male that you've been married to, let's say, for a long, long time. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're more like roommates than you are husband and wife. And a lot of
Well,
women, talk about that.
well, it was a horrific experience that I went through with my ex-husband as a covert narcissist. He was somebody who sidelined the fact that I was going through the menopause. The fact that not just the menopause, because I struck early menopause due to having chemotherapy. So I went into perimenopause fairly early. And on a more serious note, he treated me as though I was asexual. And it was, I mean, if I could have disappeared into the shadows then, I think I would have done. He was quite happily pushing me into that. And, it's really difficult because as you grow older, there's a real juxtaposition between the fact that you feel more confident and you care less and you want to get out there and you're stronger in your opinions and other certain things, and yet you feel this innate insecurity about the way you look, about the way you come across, which isn't helped when the person that you're with makes you feel as though you're asexual almost. You're just friends. Oh no, I couldn't possibly touch you. Oh no. Well, and anyway, he had other issues in terms of, my discard had begun. And so he made me feel dreadful about things that I wore, or, if I had put on any weight, he would stare at my stomach because, that made me feel very self-conscious. So it was cruel what he did. I think one of the cruelest things was me comparing a friend of mine, or somebody that used to be a friend of mine, whose husband had researched the menopause to find out what it was that she needed. I mean, can you imagine feeling
No,
jealous over
imagine
something
that.
like that? I know. I mean, I didn't really care for him, or, it wasn't about him, but gosh, imagine having somebody who cared so much about you that they wanted to inform themselves and find out what would make you feel better. Whereas my ex-husband was doing quite the opposite and was asking me if I wasn't sure that I'd imagined it.
Mm,
That I was
wow.
making up the menopause. I mean, all of this is in the book because it needs to be addressed that when you're going through something which is such a vulnerable state, and it is a vulnerable state, you are mixing it with a feisty, kind of opinionated woman. And it's hard then to feel sorry for them. But actually, that's what we need. Not to be felt sorry for, but we need to be cared about, valued and looked at as though we are still attractive. It doesn't,
Mhm.
we don't have to.
A little bit of grace would definitely be in order when it comes to the things that we experience during menopause. So you were in this controlling narcissistic relationship, and you write about this in your book, Hello Flower. How did you begin to untangle yourself and get away from that? What did you do?
Do you know, it's really difficult to answer this, but I think the inner feisty, independent woman was growing older within me. And I think she was rearing up her head and trying to tell the brittle, shallow, empty kind of, case around her, there is somebody in here. We need to get you out of this. I don't know if that
Mm,
really, it was as if she was putting up her hand, menopausal or not, grey hair or not. Do you know, whatever it was, she was saying, this is not making you happy.
mm,
And you need to do stuff for you. And I think after so many decades, so long of always doing something which is right for the other person, or you're trying to make things better, that's what got me out. Gradually, it
mm,
didn't happen overnight. But I
mhm.
started thinking to myself, that this isn't right. This isn't making me happy. What about me? I don't want to hide anymore. I think as well, there's another thing that this is about the whole, mental state and realizing something and facing your truth. I was teaching in a school. Well, in the school, the kids loved me. The teachers thought I dressed really well. They thought I was really cool. It was fun and it made me feel like me. Okay. But the second I left that building, and even though the work was really hard and it was tough and it was long hours and everything else, but as I started to walk home or, cycle home or whatever I was doing, I could almost feel the dread,
Mhm.
encompassing my shoulders and weighing me down because I never quite knew what he was going to be like when I went in, or whether I had to dampen down on my mood to make him feel better, So,
Yep.
I
I'm
mean,
sure so many women who are listening to this could definitely relate to that. I think whether we're married to a narcissist or not, I think we've all done that for our husbands, our significant others, for our children, for our parents, basically kind of tapping down how we're really feeling and instead taking in consideration their feelings and trying to find a way to nurture them and take care of them in the same time, many times in detriment to ourselves. And one of the things I think that's really important about your message is recognizing that you don't have to live like that anymore. You don't have to do that. And now that you have gotten out of that situation, what are your feelings? How do you feel about yourself now?
it's funny because, well, it's not funny at all. I mean, a lot of the things that prevented me from moving on very quickly, he was very good at escape projects. So he would, run away, not face up to it, leaving me to deal with everything. And so the time for me actually leaving was always prolonged. Plus, I also think, Lynn, that very often it doesn't matter how much our instincts are telling us that this is all right, that this is not good, that we need to get out. There's also an intrinsic part of us that is saying, come on, you can do this, you can make this better. Don't go. Come on, this can improve. And unfortunately, for a long time, even after I started to realize something wasn't wrong, I made excuses. There was bereavement. He did future faking, which is promising me everything was going to change and it would all be different. But I think when the really cruel discard began and I got out and I found my little pockets of peace
Mm.
and light, that's when I started to think I actually prefer being on my own. You know, even if I wasn't being seen by other people, I saw me.
Yes. Beginning to value the idea of seeing yourself as you rather than being concerned about how other people are seeing you. Really beginning to be you. And I can understand that. I've gone through a metamorphosis that is not quite as extreme, but there's some similarities because I have a very alpha type husband. And at the time that we got married in our 40s, I was very successful in corporate America, making lots of money. But I had an anxiety disorder, so I had to leave and decided to go to work for myself. And all of a sudden, my husband's seeing this one woman that he married. Now there's this other one that's not making any money, talking about doing something online. This is back in 2008. So, I mean, I might have been speaking Chinese in terms of, what it was
Yeah,
I wanted
of
to do. It's
course.
like, what? And then, you know, and so he tried to be supportive, but it was difficult for him because there was a lack of understanding in terms of what it was I wanted to do. And so that's when I had to really dig in and begin to take care of me because the feedback I was getting outside of me was not good. Would have had any person would have gotten down when you're trying to, push something out and, someone saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Well, go back to get a real job, that kind of thing. When you hear that, that's very self-defeating. But somewhere within me, I knew that I had to be obedient to my call, that this was
Yeah.
what I was supposed to do. Bottom line. And I'm just wondering, did you have any inner voice like that said, no, this is better. This is what you need to do?
I think I wasn't. Did I have an inner voice? No, not initially, because initially I just needed to get out. I will say something though, which I will send you the link where you will be able to see the difference in me.
Mm,
So I write on a Substack page
yes.
and I write a blog. And this summer, I wrote a blog called Take the Photo. And
Mm,
this is about the fact, I won't go into it, so you can read it and you can read the link and you can see afterwards. And the afterwards is a video which shows me when I was with him and was looking around this house for the first time, and I look brittle.
mm.
And then there's me this summer because somebody insisted that we needed to take a video of me in this place. Honestly, it's as if somebody switched the light back on.
Wow. I understand that. I understand that analogy. Absolutely. When I look at myself, 17 years ago, 18 years ago, when I first left corporate America, I look very different. I'm 67.
And you
And
look
back
younger now.
Right. And, I didn't have all that gray hair, and I know I probably have wrinkles somewhere, but I have this inner light in me that I didn't have then because I'm operating within my gifting. And one thing I really want women to understand is that when you're in a situation where it is literally draining the life out of you, you got to get out. You got to make some changes because the other side of that is, quite frankly, death. And I'm being literal, death of the spirit, and eventually death of the body. Because your body cannot continue to support you if you are spiritually fraught and heavy. And there's just like no light getting in there. You can't survive that. And when I look at your story, a lot of it had to do with survival.
Yes. I wanted to get out of that relationship and I realized that there was nothing. It didn't matter how many years I'd been trying, there was nothing. It was dust. It was finished. I didn't know what he was. But as I learned about what he was, and oh my goodness, and I screamed and I cried and I grieved, not him, but the time lost for that. Then I started, then I started to rebuild myself. And that came with little things. It came with little tiny prizes for me. It came with going to the supermarket and allowing myself to pack my shopping bag however I wanted to pack it. It allowed me to rush around the supermarket and just pick up a few things that I needed and things that I chose to eat, not things that he wanted. Because this is about control. Now, controlling, it has this effect on you that you almost lose your sense of who you are and what you choose. I remember wanting to go away and wanting to do something about 4 months after I left him, and nobody was free. And I sat there and said, well, book a trip away for yourself then. What are you waiting for? If nobody else is free, then you do this for you. And so I went on a horse trekking holiday around the Etruscan mountains, the Etruscan ruins here in Italy, in Tuscany. And, every single step, every single thing that I did, small, big, whatever it was, I was doing it for me. And I've learnt to say no when it doesn't feel right.
Which is a huge thing. And as I like to think, I love this saying that no is a complete sentence. When you say no, you don't have to explain it. That's another thing that we have a tendency to do, is that not just say no, but then go into the reason why. Like we're like not just justifying it to them, but justifying it to ourselves. Even when we know it's because we just don't want to do that thing, or it's not what's best for us, we still sometimes feel the need to further explain it, to kind of justify it. But what I hear you saying is that you're moving from that. You're moving from that. You've moved from that.
Two things that I would say that I've really learned. Silence is your friend. Okay, because often we over-explain things, and it's unbelievable how strong you feel when you stop explaining and you just sit back and then you watch as the other person almost ties them. I don't mean to tie other people up in knots. I'm not saying that, but very often just sit and don't explain. Let them do the talking. And the other thing I don't do as much, and I stop myself, physically stop myself. I don't apologize as much as I used to.
Yeah, sometimes we apologize when it's really not necessary. I've had several women in this whole holistic movement give me that feedback. You don't need to apologize, not a problem. No, no, it's fine. And I don't know where that comes from. I think it has to do with our orientation as women, especially women my age in their 60s and where we came from. It just occurred to me not too long ago. In the 70s, when I was growing up, my mother was a teacher and then she went into administration. And she could not legally get her own checking account until like about 73 or 74. I didn't even know that. She never mentioned it. I just know that mom and dad had their same, checking account with their names on it and stuff. But I didn't realize it was because at that time she didn't have a choice. I didn't know that. Um, and it's really interesting because even though that's not the way it is now, the offshoot and the energy that was created back then as a result of that, even subconsciously, is there somewhere. And I thought, wow, what powerful information. Let me just undo any programming that's left over. I mean, I'm financially independent, and my husband has his, I have mine, and then we have ours. But I just thought that was interesting because it's very symbolic of what could be going on a lot with women our age. It's not so much, I don't want to, poo-poo the parents. It's not that. It's just the way the times were. And there's this undergird or underflow of programming that we have that we don't even recognize or think about. But when you really peel back the layers and start thinking about your life and why things might be, you'll be surprised how much of it has to do with very early programming where nothing was just said. It's just the way things were. And so you kind of continue that subconsciously in your mind.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So now that you are an accomplished writer,
yeah,
everybody go and get Hello Flower. It really is a wonderful book about her being married to a covert narcissist and how she untangled herself to become the beautiful woman that you're seeing right now. So what's next for you?
I'm going to leave Italy.
Hmm.
I think it's really important I think some of the time a place is as bad as the people in terms of, Italy is lovely, but it holds you back. There's too many things around here that it's not necessarily a reminder of him. It prevents you. I want a new start.
Great. So
So
what's the next country? Do you know what the next country will be?
I think I would really like to move to Ireland, to the
Oh,
south
it's
of
so
Ireland.
beautiful there. I've heard. I've never been, but I've heard that it's absolutely beautiful. I think
And
we
the
had talked
people
about
are,
that before. Yeah. I watch Acorn TV just so I can watch some of the Irish TV series because the,
the accent, it's the accent is adorable.
yeah, oh, real? Yeah, it is. Yes, it
It is.
is. Very, very,
But
very, very charming.
I have family over there. So I think
Well,
that's going to be the next thing. I think it's going to be a big move within the next year, and that will be my forever place. So I'm going to see. Anyway, life has a habit of working itself out. I'm not afraid, and
well,
I'll find a way. And I would like to continue writing, maybe book 2, maybe another book, maybe a book about what Italy is really like.
wow, that would be, yeah, because everybody has all kinds of ideas that may not necessarily match your experience. I want to read what you wrote, the last little bit that you wrote on the site where I discovered you, because I think it really kind of says it all for a lot of us. You said, I am definitely a work in progress. I make my own choices now from what I choose to eat, the time of day I eat it, to what I wear, and the places I decide to travel to. I am living proof that you can leave, that you can and will do better and be better away from them, and you will dance again in your kitchen and smile and eat cake. And I think that could be true for any kind of change in your life you know you need to make, whether it's a relationship or a job, or you don't like the house that you're in, or you want to move to another city because you don't like the place that you're in. It's amazing when you allow yourself, and I say allow because the empowerment is within us, allow yourself to feel your own empowerment and to go ahead and
And
take
I just
control of your life. Yes.
I'm just going to finish off with something that I often talk
Yes.
about with the whole narcissistic thing, and it's an acronym, okay?
Yes.
And it's 3. It's AAB. Acknowledge what you've been through, whatever it is, whatever's caused you pain or caused you to feel that you're suffering or that you're less of who you are, whatever it is, acknowledge it, name it, say, okay, I've been through this. This has happened to me. And take it on board, because until you actually acknowledge it, you're still in denial and you won't get past it. I had to understand that my ex-husband was a covert narcissist, a proper one, a real one, a cruel one, before I was able to move on. The second
Wow.
part, interestingly, the second letter is A again. Allow. Allow yourself to cry. Allow yourself to get angry. Allow yourself to be happy. And allow yourself treats, to dance in the kitchen, to eat the extra slice of cake, to smile, to get angry, because not every day is rainbows and unicorns. Allow yourself to do that, because that's all part of the work in progress. And the last part kind of unites the two, and that's B, build up your self-esteem and build up your self-confidence, because you do matter. 100% you matter.
Martina, thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your story with the world because it's going to help so many people. And thank you for being on the V.I.B.E Living podcast today. It's been wonderful having you here.
And I've loved talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you for listening and also for subscribing to the podcast. Please go ahead and share this podcast and whatever other podcasts. I think this year we've done close to 100 podcasts. So definitely check them out. Some wonderful women, wonderful topics, wonderful way of being, looking at alternative methods to be well in your mind, body, and spirit, and making sure that you're vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered along your midlife journey. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.